At this time, we're going to keep our program moving. We're going to have remarks from Congressman Jonathan Jackson, who will be the family representation.
Congratulations, Dad. I stand here today with an overwhelming sense of gratitude and respect for the people of this great city, the city of Chicago. And I want to thank the Honorable and great Mayor Brandon Johnson and First Lady Johnson for working with the elected officials, with the activists in the church community to bestow this honor upon my father, Reverend Jesse Jackson. As a member of the Jackson family, I am indebted to the respect and kindness that you show my father on this day of his 83rd birthday. And what a fitting way to wish Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson a very happy birthday, giving him a key to the city he has truly considered to be his home. I think it is entirely appropriate to give great men and great women flowers while they can still smell them. People who make an indelible mark on the lives of millions of people, who push the moral arc of this nation in the right direction, should know that their work has not been in vain. And if Jesse Jackson had not been born, Dad, 83 years ago, we would have had to create one, because the history of this nation would not be the same without you, Dad. The more I think about his life, the more it becomes clear to me that while we cannot choose where we are born, we do get to choose where we call home. Sweet home Chicago. The story of Jesse Lewis Jackson cannot be told without also telling the story, Mom, of the city of Chicago. I submit to you today that all of the fire and all of the fervor that Jesse Jackson amassed in order to keep the light of the dream alive, he got it from his interactions from the city of Chicago. When the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. assigned a young Jesse Jackson to lead the breadbasket campaign from the city of Chicago, Reverend King created a relationship between a man and a city that would stand the test of time. When the Reverend Clay Evans put his arms around my father and embraced him as one of his spiritual sons, Reverend Evans was cementing an indelible relationship between a prophet and his people. That's why it is altogether fitting that we should be here today. Dad, you didn't change the Democratic Party from New Orleans, you changed it from Chicago. Dad, you didn't make corporations include African Americans in their contracts and leadership positions from Wall Street in New York City. You did it from Chicago. And let's be very clear, Jesse Jackson didn't run for the presidency of the United States in 1984 and 1988, thereby lighting the way for those who would come behind him to believe that it was possible from Atlanta, Georgia, or from Los Angeles, or from Houston, or from Raleigh, North Carolina. He did it from the city of Chicago. There is a magic between this man and this city that allows great things to happen when people come together, because there's no place like Chicago. The city of broad shoulders, the city that works, the Windy City, Chi-Town, my kind of town, the city that was meant to be the city by the lake and the prairies. You did it right here, Dad, from Chicago. And when you come here, and when you come from here, all Chicagoans, you stand up differently. When you're from Chicago and you face the bitter cold in the winter and the hard heat from the summer, you walk in the room because your blood is different. People from Chicago don't bow their heads, and we don't duck our tails in between our legs in the face of opposition and conflict. We come from Chicago. Being from Chicago gives you a dignity in the sense of self-respect that makes you shine when others are afraid of the light, Mayor. So Chicago, I want to thank you for embracing my father and being so good to my family. Chicago, you gave my father and my mother 2 representatives into the House of Congress. Thank you, Chicago. I want to thank you for that. Thank you for being a remarkable city where great things are possible. Thank you for having given Jesse Jackson the key to the city. The Jackson family gives you the key to our heart. God bless you, and I thank you so very, very much. I left a moment too soon. Without further ado, I am so honored to introduce a man that I call a friend and a brother, a man who has taken on this enormous challenge to govern this great city, a man that stands as a giant trying to dig us out of a hole, a man that is willing to take on the heat, that braves the cold, a man that is keenly articulate, instinctively intelligent, persuasively analytical, the honorable, not from the east side or the south side, not from the north side, but indeed, some would say, the blessed side, the west side of Chicago, the Honorable Mayor Brandon Johnson.
Thank you, Congressman. Thank you so much. Please be seated. And let me just say, of my time in office, this has to be one of the blackest experiences that this city has ever experienced. I'm coming out of my office and I'm talking to my wife, and I said, I hear gospel music and I smell chicken. Welcome to Fellowship Church of God in Christ here at City Hall. Let me also just say, Reverend, my remarks are brief because the eloquence and the capacity of admiration has already filled this temple. But I will say that from your first pastor, Pastor Clay Evans, every pastor after that, let's give it up for Pastor Reverend Clay Evans and his legacy. But I will say, Reverend, every pastor after your first pastor, why do their suits get tighter and tighter? These are not in my remarks. It's just an observation. It's just, your pastor had a robe, and then these other 2 brothers that came afterwards, it's just like, all right. But I do, please give it up for Pastor Jenkins and Pastor Sharp for carrying the legacy. Happy birthday, Reverend Jesse Jackson. Happy birthday. We're here to celebrate you on this day. Chicago is very pleased and proud to have you as our son, father, and brother, champion. I'm grateful that there are so many amazing people that are here today, elected officials, friends and loved ones, and even to the press corps. Thank you for covering blackness the right way. As we gather here today to not just lift up the accomplishments of Reverend Jackson and his legacy and celebrate, this is also an opportunity for us to be reminded that there is only one pathway forward. And I do wish, much like Reverend Jackson probably wished, that the road would be easier. But we knew that the road to freedom would be long. And when President Nelson Mandela told us that story of that long road to freedom, he knew that one day that the city of Chicago will be a part of that story. In fact, President Mandela is the last person in the city of Chicago to receive a key from an administration. Reverend Jackson, you are a lifetime and in living color. And you understood that the color had to be multiple colors. The Rainbow Coalition that you understood, but through the lens of our personal experiences as Black people, you've been able to eloquently and profoundly stitch together the hopes and dreams of not just our ancestors, but the hopes and dreams of other people groups. And you were able to prophetically connect our hopes and aspirations to people who also sought justice. You've empowered the lives of people all over the globe. And so, yes, this is a celebration. And yes, it is truly my honor to be a part of this celebration. But I want you to be very clear that this is about us cementing your leadership into the halls of power for generations to come. You know, I'm grateful for your wife, Mrs. Jackson. I am. There are very few people on the planet that you can be afraid of and still want to hug. Sorry, Mrs. Jackson, but I'm just for real. But your creativity and your bravery and your steadiness has shepherded this moment into existence. And I know that because I am not the man that I am without the Black woman that I lay down with every single night. And so, as the history maker that you are, the first Black woman, first lady in the history of Chicago, next to the first Black first lady of the globe, Stacey Johnson and Jacqueline Jackson, God bless the two of you. Reverend, back to you. I'm going to give you a few more seconds here. But your leadership and your wisdom and advocacy is loved. You know, you said something to me some years ago. You said, Brandon, people celebrate the Jackie Robinsons of the world. But they often forget about the Willie Mazes. You said, Brandon, you're Willie Mays. You said that. But what I'm so appreciative of, you understood that it wasn't enough to be the first. That your legacy only matters based on how many people you can bring along. And Reverend, from the White House to corporate leaders, you have produced Willie Mazes all over the world. And so with that, in closing, we thank you. We thank you that the long road to freedom and our liberation is a little bit shorter now. Your mentor said that he may not get there, but I can see on the other side of the mountain. Put me in A flat. No, I'm teasing. Almost, Reverend Jenkins. I almost went there. But I can see on the other side of the mountain that whether you're a Black boy, white girl, brown, black, brown, white, Asian, you understood that we can stand the test of time. And those who wish to disrupt this movement, make no mistake about it, the city of Chicago will not only be better, stronger, and safer. The city of Chicago will be what your mentor prophesied a generation ago. When he came to the west side of Chicago, Dr. King said that if we can figure out housing in Chicago, if we can figure out public education in Chicago, if we can figure out transportation in Chicago, if we can figure out good paying jobs in Chicago, if we can figure out healthcare in Chicago, if we can figure out environmental justice in Chicago, we can do it anywhere in the world. Well, Chicago, guess what, you all? The world is ready for transformation because we have figured it out because of Reverend Jesse Jackson. God bless you. Thank you very much. So now, with the power that the people of Chicago gave me. Okay, I'm gonna say that one more time because apparently there's some people who are confused about the power that I have. There's a few people that somehow forgot there was a whole election that gave me the power to transform this city. So to Reverend Jackson, to Mrs. Jackson, to the entire Jackson family, thank you all. Y'all saw Jonathan, but can I just say real quick, Yusuf and Santita are the real deal too, y'all. Santita will get you straight with a smile. Before you know it, you are taking orders and saying, yes, ma'am. With the power that's been vested in me, the city of Chicago recognizes the profound impact that Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. has had on our city. Whereas born October 8th, 1941, whereas a civil rights leader notably known to work alongside of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whereas you've devoted your life to fight for justice, leading numerous marches and campaigns, whereas making history as a trailblazer in American politics in your run for the presidency, whereas you have been honored with tremendous, profound contributions of your humanitarian and tireless advocacy for social justice, I, Brandon Johnson, mayor of the greatest freaking city in the world, the city of Chicago, do hereby proclaim October 8th, 2024 as Reverend Jesse Jackson Senior Day, and I present to you, let me just say before I tell them what this is, I wanted to be very clear, Reverend, this is a key, but it don't open up all the doors. There's some doors that's just meant for me and my wife. But for the rest of the doors, brother, the key to the city of Chicago.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Reverend Jackson. Happy birthday. Y'all got it? To you.
Happy birthday, Reverend.